It's Friday, so I thought I'd share some food for thought for your weekend. Is it possible to get a journalist to come to you? According to a book by Iliyana Stareva, written a few years ago, it is, but it takes a bit of courage and a wish to change your approach. Inbound PR is a book I've dipped into over and over again over the past few years, and I'm reading it once again on my Kindle by the pool this week on holiday in Sardinia, in Italy. It's a beautiful place, this is, if you're watching on YouTube again. The premise of this book is why go to journalists when it can be so hard and unreliable, when you could get journalists to come to you? You know, success in PR is still seen by so many people as being about sending out a bunch of press releases to, 500 random journalists and hoping for the best. It's no surprise that really, though, as many PR clients and bosses ask for it. And frankly, it's what's still sort of perceived as being as the PR role. But that often goes with the hard sell, doesn't it? And if you've been listening to this show long enough, you'll know that I ended up actually banning all stories from one PR agency when I was an editor because they just wasted so much of my time and frankly misled me too many times. But this book, Inbound PR, views things very differently. It basically says you want to be doing content marketing and social media, but in a very targeted way. It's not just about putting out anything. So let me share 3 points from the chapter that I read last night. The first one is that Ilana says, when you write a blog or a tweet, write it not for your customers, but for journalists. Now, this is a different mindset. What would they be interested that they could report on? Instead of writing anything, think what would be newsworthy? What has happened in your sector that they might want to write about? Think like a newsroom providing a free resource to that journalist, not just putting out anything, but actually some genuinely useful content that they could write a story based on. Number two, in terms of blog content, this was an interesting point she made, is you want to be thinking about writing evergreen content for your blog. If you do your SEO right, it's still going to take something like a month to actually rank successfully on Google. So you want to be writing this ahead of time. You want to be looking for the trends, writing it ahead, and making sure that when it comes to the point when a journalist might be writing about it, like that story I was talking about the other day about the mustard crisis in France, that it's going to be trending then. And point number three was to think less about press releases and more about content and social media written for journalists. She points to the fact, she gives a figure of something like 1,000 press releases being sent to journalists almost every day. And 99% of those are often just completely ignored as spam. And she says social media is crucial for this. She says you want to be reaching out to journalists when they tweet about a story and commenting on that fast, offering a bit of help. So actually getting in that social context and in that conversation. There's so much more you can say on this. I think, again, if you heard an episode not that long ago, I was talking about a BBC journalist who said that most of his sourcing now is coming from Twitter. And in terms of whether he uses you or not is often based on how many followers you've got and that social validation of how much of a following you have. And also LinkedIn is popular as well, isn't it? One thing that really struck me from this is that, so often when you go onto LinkedIn, for example, there's so much fluff on there, a sort of opinion or I think this or I think that. And it's not written for journalists, it's written to kind of demonstrate the expertise. But the point that she's making here is about writing the content specifically for a journalist so that they could use this stuff. I would say this inbound PR approach takes a bit of courage. Waiting for 1 month for content to work can be a tough sell to your boss or even to yourself, frankly, if you're trying to get some press coverage. But on a plus side, the metrics are there, which Ilana also makes clear, is that with this kind of thing, you can see clearly what people are clicking on, whether the right people are clicking on it, who's been engaging with it, using various CRMs and things like that. So much more we could say on that too. So to sum up, if you're writing a blog post or social media post today, think of a journalist or influencer in your field, and then think how you could write it for them. So not just to get any information, but to help them write another story. Have you tried Inbound PR? I would love to know if you have and what your experience was with it, not just from that book, but just this whole approach of getting journalists to notice your content. You're welcome to come on this show. I would love to do a little guest interview with you if you'd like to share some of your story. You can reach out to me via the email in the newsletter, which comes out all the time at thepublicrelationspodcast.com, thepublicrelationspodcast.com, or you're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn as Richard Midson or on Twitter at that PR chap. Maybe I should invite Ilana and see if she would like to come on this show as well. Would you like me to invite her on? I think it could be really interesting to hear her perspective. Talking of some chats that I've got coming up, As I mentioned the other day, I speak to people all the time, but I need to start twisting their arms a little bit more to actually come on as guests on this show. More on that in a moment, because I have got someone coming up very soon. If you're listening to this show, by the way, for the first time, you are listening to the Public Relations Podcast. The newsletter can be found at thepublicrelationspodcast.com. And I'm trying to get as many people and as many ideas from around the PR world on this show every week that could help you, whether you're doing this for your business, your organization, or just for yourself, if you're trying to build a personal brand. Next week, I'm going to be having a chat then with a PR from the Cannes Film Festival. At least she goes to the Cannes Film Festival all the time. She's an accredited PR there. So I'm really interested in how the movie business is changing its approach to PR as films change, and also with the way that we consume PR more differently. There's so much more cynicism around it now. How are they changing, and how are they pushing the right buttons with people? I hope you're finding this show really useful, and as it is Friday, I hope you have a great weekend, whether you're in a venue like this or whether you're just sitting at home relaxing. Have a great weekend. I'll speak to you next week. Bye.